Elon Musk is this obviously controversial figure, but an incredibly impressive entrepreneur. Doesn't need to work from a monetary perspective. Yet he works harder than 99.9% of people in the world still.
Like, are you insane? Like, if you don't evolve and change, your business will disappear no matter what it is. You're only on this planet once.
Welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurial Excellence Podcast. It is great to have Shawn Freeman here with me today. But part of what makes him really interesting here today is because this podcast is all about entrepreneurial excellence. And previous to Shawn's current project, he had a company called TWT, which stands for Technology, Wisdom, Trust. And the whole idea of that was basically how do companies use IT technology to make their businesses better. So Shawn, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I like to kick things off with really all my guests is talk about define excellence, right? So I would argue you had an exit, a decent exit, for a company that you ran for 9 years, right? Which is a long time, although founders tend to forget that to reach a point of exit, you need to spend lots and lots of years in the wilderness compounding those returns to get to a point you actually have an exit. But what did excellence mean for you when you were running TWT? Has that changed for you now that you're consulting with a lot of different companies? What does that look like? What is a truly excellent entrepreneur in your mind?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's really values based. It's just high quality, really showing that you care, and then also just building community. I'm a big fan of just connecting people. It's kind of funny, this dichotomy of I'm all about tech, but there's the people behind it, and I think that really resonates with me and a lot of other people that share values with me. So I think that's, for me, really whatever I'm doing, it's got to be high quality. It's got to really show people that I care and really help them in whatever they're trying to accomplish. If we can do that, then I'd say that probably checks the excellence box for me.
So I'll push you a little bit there, right? I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, if I were to go talk to them, they would all say, my goal is to make the world better. I want to improve things, et cetera, et cetera. What really stands out, though, do you think about with your own success, or maybe with others that you've worked with, that really separates out the good entrepreneurs from the truly excellent ones, the ones that have outsized returns, or in what's going to, doesn't have to be financial. We should talk about what even returns mean. But even outside returns where they can, maybe an outside return would be they can hand their business off to someone else who does all the grunt work, and they get a fat dividend check every month or quarter, and that's success too, right? What does truly great look like?
It's funny. I think as a leader, truly great is really being able to get out of your own way and build other leaders, right? And build them into that spot where I know that they're going to take care of the clients as if I would, and really distilling those values and helping them understand the reasons behind them, and then just have them execute on it. I think a lot of leaders get in their own way. They can't hire somebody and trust that they'll do a good job, even if it's not exactly how they would do it. And I think that's kind of, for me, really key as I've both built my business to the point that we did sell. And then from there, it's just, I don't need to be the person doing everything. I think for me, excellence is realizing that I'm a really good visionary and I can help people see the future and create it and find a path there. But I don't need to be the one to forge that path. I'll be alongside them, but they're going to be doing the work. And really, that empowers them. And, that helps build people. That helps build their character, their skill, just really turns them into a new leader, a new generation of leader, right? And for me, if I can do that, plus all the other stuff at the beginning, how do you lose? That's excellence right there. And then, the money's great and the money will follow. If you do those things, you're going to have a successful business.
Where do you find, you work with a lot of different small businesses. Where do they fall down on that level of success? So I tend to agree with you, right? If you just work hard and put your head down and focus, you will end up and do great work for your clients and customers. You will have success. There will be good outcomes at the end. But lots fail, right? A huge number of small businesses fail. What do they get wrong? What are those founders and entrepreneurs missing that the ones who are successful have?
Yeah, I think two things. I think they forget to ask for help when they need it. They don't realize that, I'm not the expert at this. And, you get so used to just figuring stuff out as an entrepreneur. So you think you can do everything. But the thing is, why would I not just hire an expert to do it twice as fast with no learning curve, and then it's done and I can move faster versus just struggle my way through it, make mistakes. And a lot of these things can be like really basic things. I'm not even talking about complicated things like accounting or tax planning, like really rudimentary things like admin work. So once you realize that you need to just have other people do the work for you, so the Dan Sullivan is the who, not how, and really distill that to everything you're doing. And then the second part of that is to actually be able to execute on that kind of philosophy, is to realize that you wanting to not do that is just your ego. It's not that you're better. There's going to be somebody you can hire that is better at the thing. And the quicker you do that, the faster you move and the better your company is. But really what's holding you back from doing that's your ego most of the time.
So is the accurate distillation of what you just said delegation? Is that like the one word, sort of like delegate really well, and I guess hire well? I mean, is that the two key elements, what you're saying?
Yeah, those are 100% fundamental things. But I think the problem to get there is to get out of your own way and realize that, you're not the best at that thing. Like most things, if you look at most things in a business, the business owner, the founder is not going to be the best at them. There's always going to be somebody that can even do it 80%, and then the founder can focus on what they can do only. And that's where they're most valuable, right? They're most valuable looking ahead 2 years and saying, where do we need to be in 2 years and how do we get there? And for tech, but for everything in the company, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It might be fundraising. It might be growing into a new geography. Yeah.
We run across a huge number of founders who say, well, look, I can do this myself. Like, I don't want to spend the money or the time, or it's really not that hard, or it doesn't take that much time to do. And I'm like, you're doing a terrible accounting of your time. Like, I have all these reasons why I can tell someone they're wrong, but they don't want to listen. So how do you go about explaining to founders, get out of your own ego, like way with ego, stop penny pinching in every little thing, because by penny pinching, you're not investing your time properly. How do you explain that to them in a way that they actually listen? Because I struggle with that explanation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to provide an explanation, a logical one to an ego, right? An ego is going to find an answer to everything you throw at it, right? It's just trying to protect itself. And the thing is, like, at the end of the day, the question is, do you want to grow? Like, if you want to grow from here to wherever your goal is, doing back office stuff is not a part of your journey to get there as a founder, right? You need, and that's a very obvious one, right? And the next one is maybe sales, right? And maybe bring in a COO to run the operations. And those are really the steps you need to take to grow. And people don't do it. And it's 100% their ego. And also fear, right? Like, there's a bit of ego fear play there, right? Well, what if we don't get the revenue, or, what if it's too expensive? But I mean, entrepreneurship is all the unknowns, right? If you can't handle that, then maybe you should just go and join a competitor and let them handle the fear.
Is there training that you do for people to help them think through how to use their time the right way, or where to best focus? Like going back, like, what makes for an excellent entrepreneur? My thesis is that it's the ones who know how to really focus their time and be really good on that front. But like, what would you define as like the skill sets that the best have? And then how does it play out with this sort of delegation? And then we should talk about hiring and bringing on. How do you choose the right people that you can trust and say, I'm going to get rid of my ego and hand this to you?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it really starts at like what your big goal is. Like, in 20 or 30 years, what do you want to accomplish, right? And if that goal's not big enough, then really what you're doing today is probably fine. You'll get there, right? You'll grow at your 5% a year, and that compounds, and you've got a pretty awesome business, and you're decent value. You've got a really good net worth. And but the thing is, if your goal is massive, then it kind of forces you to be like, well, if I'm actually serious about that massive goal, then I need, like, it's not happening unless I get out of my own way. And I find that that's maybe the start. I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs, like, I do that on the side for free, just the up and coming ones. And a lot of them are like, yeah, I've got $1 million business. I'm making 300 grand. Things are good. Maybe if we grow a little bit next year, if we maintain, I'm like, are you insane? Like, if you don't evolve and change, your business will disappear no matter what it is. And if that's your goal and you're like, well, this is easy, well, you're only on this planet once. So if you're on your deathbed tomorrow and you're like, yeah, I just had $1 million business for 50 years and made, 300 grand a year, and I was happy with that. Like, a lot of people will be like, that's an amazing thing. That's a really great position to be in. But once you're there, like, why stop? Why not? You've done that. Like, what more impact can you make? And it's not even about the money anymore. It's like, how many people on your team can you make better? How many other clients can you help? And really, you got to really build your goals. When I was starting my business, I really found that as an entrepreneur, I didn't know what was possible. Right. And now it's like I sold a business to a much bigger company that opened my eyes and perspective. And I've done lots of coaching since then to realize that, like, really, whatever you want to do, like Elon Musk said, I'm going to put people in orbit and I'm going to put somebody on Mars. Like, he's going to accomplish that. Right. So it's really about setting your big goal and then figuring it out if you really want it, work backwards.
So do you recommend then for the companies, the small businesses you work with, like, hey, if you want to actually do more than just say, oh, I made good money for my career, like, congrats, like, well done. That's better than a lot of people, once again, very privileged. But if you want to do more, is it about setting a really audacious mission and vision? Like, what do you then recommend?
Yeah, definitely. It's about the why, right? It's the old Simon Sinek, like, why are you doing what you do? And then just scaling that as big as you can think, right? Because if you can, the old cliche, if you can dream it, you can do it. And when you say yes to something, you got to say no to other things. So you really need to, as a leader, do that work. And a lot of leaders don't do that work until they've had a success, me included, right? They're like, oh yeah, like, I've got a $5 million company. That's awesome. Making good money. And then they sell it, and then they go and take a year off, and somehow all that free time, helps them understand, what was really important and why they did what they did, myself included. And I think it's kind of a interesting journey. And I think that's fairly common for first time founders. And so I guess my message is just like, how do you not have to sell, but still find that, right? And that's where that, like, work that a leader needs to be doing is really important, is figuring out what the bigger picture needs to be. I mean, nobody's going to create your 5-year vision or your goals. You have to do it as a leader. And so how do you make sure they align with all the different parts of your life? Not only just the monetary side, but all the other sides. So the community aspects, the, impact on your employees, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just recently went through a quarterly review, and I spent a lot of time writing down, like, what are our goals? What are our plans? How did we do towards our goals? Are we still on track for what we want to accomplish? And then also, from a team-wide perspective, I always repeat, why are we here?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why is this exciting? I mean, how do we make sure every entrepreneur in the world has a chance to achieve their vision and dreams, because they don't have this back office pain anymore? Have operations. How do you take that off your plate? But Elon Musk is this obviously controversial figure, but an incredibly impressive entrepreneur. He clearly doesn't need to work from a monetary perspective. He has more money than he could ever hope to spend, even if he tried in his entire life. Yet he works harder than 99.9% of people in the world still on running multiple companies, and because he's sort of audacious dreams and goals. Is that, once again, like, sort of your recommendation for a lot of founders? Is like, hey, if you want to do it, go build these audacious plans. And then how do you go about and achieve it? What have you seen from the ones, once again, who've done a really good job of, like, it's one thing to say, I want to go have people on Mars. It's another thing to actually execute on that, right? Lots and lots of people have probably said the same thing, and then they maybe at best write it down in some sci-fi book and it goes on a shelf and that's it. Elon Musk is actually executing on it. What have you seen from the best people who actually execute?
You can tell they're driven by something else, right? He's obviously driven not by just the money or the fame. He's driven by the impact that's creating on our future, right? And I think that's, a lot of founders don't know what that is for themselves, right? And I'm still not 100% sure about it, but I have an idea. I know a direction, really, and that work is as important, if not a lot more important than, did we make the customer happy today? Did we get our back office stuff done today? Right? Like, that's all. You're in the weeds there. You need to really figure out why you're doing things, and what that bigger reason and drive is. Because things will get tough and they'll be hard. And if you don't have that push behind you for like, we know why we're doing this, and it's not for XYZ dollars in profit, then those things will be easier to get through, and you'll persevere.
Why do the best do what they do? Like, what if you think through either people you've met, you've worked with, you read about, or yourself? What got you into being an entrepreneur, and what drove you to go down this path? Since it's a tough path. Like, arguably, it's a lot easier life, even for the folks who really achieve it and get that 300K a year kind of in perpetuity. It still probably would have been easier for them to just get a normal job at a company. Maybe they make 100K a year. They can work a 9 to 5. They don't have to stress about all the things that go wrong every single day. Like, that's an easier life. So, like, what is it that drove you and the people you know who do this best?
Yeah. For me, it's just making an impact in other people's lives. Like really, like you have an exit, you're in a position where you don't have to work, but you still need a purpose. You still need a reason to get up, and a reason to go and make a difference. And you look at all the, Mother Teresa's and the people that are really philanthropic, like they're doing it for impacting other, for the reason to impact other people. And I think that's, anytime you give somebody something, like give a gift unexpectedly, or like just the feeling that you get more from it than they do from the gift, I think a lot of the times. And for me, that's it. How can I find more ways that are, maybe tied to a business, maybe not. And business is just a vehicle for executing on those things, right? For me, at the end of the day, I don't have, public shareholders and all that. And we can do good and make good money, and life is good, and we feel amazing, right?
What do you think drives? I mean, it sounds like you're saying sort of the drive is just like help out, but like, what are the things that really drive some of these entrepreneurs? Is it competition? Is it their ego? Like, I think ego is probably a part of it for a lot of people. I mean, for Elon, it probably is ego, but also a lot of other things. What are the things that really drive?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about ego, it's not all bad, right? It's if you can control your ego and use it for motivational things, like that's great. But you also need to realize that it's trying to sabotage you on the other side as well, right? So I think it's just knowing yourself deeply and spotting when those things come up, and then really, working around that and going back to your purpose, right? And I think it's just a bit of a, like, I don't know. I think it's a human instinct, in my opinion. It's a human instinct to want to give back, to have a purpose, to be a part of a community and be connected to other people. And I think, like I said, I've just found a way to use my business to create that in my community.
Thinking about execution, right? So it's one thing to have a big vision, an idea. It's a whole other separate thing to execute. What are the elements of the entrepreneurs that you've worked with where they execute the best? What does great execution look like? And how do they do that, not just for a week, but for a year, after year, after year, after year? Like, it is a marathon, not a sprint. So what are the elements of great execution? What are the things you recommend people put in place?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that question. I think you kind of alluded to consistency is kind of the number one thing that sets people apart.
In our quarterly review, I didn't want to pat myself in the back too much for the team, but I was like, we don't have shiny object syndrome. Our vision and mission has not changed since we started the company. Nothing, like, we are executing on our plan. It's not sexy. It's maybe not crazy every day, but we are super consistent in doing what we need to do and executing, I think.
That's super important. Entrepreneurs, like, on the whole way up from, 100,000 a year all the way to, 100 million, it's shiny thing syndrome, right? Yeah, really being consistent about what you want to do, what you want to offer, and how you want to offer it, and who are the right clients that fit your values and your mission and really match as a company, right? Like, especially in businesses where your relationships are long-term, you really want to, be with these people that you want to hang around with, you want to hang out with. They could become your friends potentially because they're such good people, right? And I think that's important. I think the other thing too is that there's levels to business, right? And again, back to, you hit a certain level and you're like, why are we plateaued for revenue or profit? It's probably the person at the top. They need to get out of their way. They need to do the thing they're afraid to do. And so at each of these levels, it's really working on yourself as a leader, going and getting coaching, talking to mentors that have been there and done that and said, oh yeah, when I was there, I finally did this, and then we doubled in 3 years. Like, you know what I mean? And you hear those stories all the time because you hit those levels, and then just like the how many people you have and how much revenue you have is just like that's where you're going to be unless you add X. And then you go and do that, and boom, everyone's like, yeah, let's go. So I think it's really the leader's job. Like after you're a dozen people, the leader's job is really to work on themselves and work on the vision of the company, right? And they should have a COO in place or somebody doing operations day to day so they can focus on those things. Especially if you're going from 12 people to 100, you're going to really need to try to stay ahead of that stuff because things move quick in business, right? And even more so now, you have to move fast.
How do people, I mean, it still feels hard, right? And what I mean by that is like what you just described as a CEO is someone who is essentially a cost center in a sense, right? They're like all costs, and it's like thinking big thoughts about the high level things, the hand wavy stuff. And for those listening, I'm kind of waving my hands. So like, how do you get past that worry that like, hey, I'm now costing the company money. I'm not generating direct revenue. It's scary to go into that realm because suddenly all the other people doing work at the company have to support your salary, which is probably the highest salary in the company.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think like Elon Musk made like $1 for however long, right? So, you as the leader, you almost, I argue your salary might not be the highest in the company, right? You kind of get to eat last, right? So there might be portions where you're like, oh, we made this much profit. I guess that's my salary. You know what I mean? So you do take those, you take those risks on as the leader. But I think the other thing too is that the investment in working on yourself and figuring out what those levels are and how you need to get out of your own way is really an investment in that future. And you're going to only do that if you have that massive vision. If you're like, okay, we're at 5 million and we want to be 50, and you're like, I think that's impossible, but I also think it's worthwhile. Then you'll be like, I need to be here. Whether I like it or not, I have to be focused on this stuff. And as a leader, if you can kind of figure out where that spot is in your business and in relation to your goals, then I think you'll have a lot of success. Just in keeping leveling up and finding the right help and asking questions and getting a mentor. And, there's always people that have been there and done it, and they're usually willing to help out, right? Like there's all these stories like, oh, my billionaire mentor. Like, yeah, they're a billionaire mentor because they want to give back. They've been there. They've been through the trenches and they know what it's like. And, they're not going to charge for that time because they're making an impact. And that's probably aligned with their future goals and their why, right?
So for all the people who are listening who don't maybe have access to that billionaire mentor or are too scared to ask, what key advice, not that you're the billionaire, but, a wonderful mentor, what would be the advice that what are some of the things you would say to people? Okay, great. Get rid of your ego, delegate better. What do those things look like? How do you go about, what are the right people or procedures or things you should get in place? If there's like, do like a step ladder, like do X first, then Y, then so on and so forth and grow from there. Are there steps that Shawn Freeman recommends?
Really, in any business, it's a problem solving. You're always solving the next biggest problem, right? So make a list of your problems and figure out who could solve them for you. Be like, okay, well, I've got my bookkeeping is, I don't get my month end until 3 months after. That's a problem because I really can't make decisions. Okay, well, who do I need? It's an obvious answer. And then go and implement that. Go put it in place. See the impact it makes, see how much time gets freed up by you and your team, and then look at the next biggest problem and figure out who can help you solve that. Again, back to my point around like entrepreneurs default to like, okay, I've got a problem, how do I fix it? And they want to fix it themselves. And you need to realize that like that's not the answer most of the time. Most of the time the answer is, who do I need to find to fix this problem for me so that I can keep working on the next problem and find out who can fix that one. Yep. Right? Because you're going to be, you see all these businesses and the owner is just solving problems themselves ongoing basis. And it's a really slow process because they're bad at them. They have to learn. Right. And so if you can be like, no, I know this person can solve that problem and this one, and then you can move quicker.
How do you? So I totally agree, right? This is once again a thesis that I'm hugely in favor of, which is essentially delegate as many things as possible to other people and trust them to get it done. Sort of trust but verify. How do you go about finding the right people? Like, what are the criteria you put in place to find people that you can hopefully trust? And then how long do you think it takes someone to actually get to a point where I can trust? You'd say I'm not going to check in a ton. I'm not going to be overbearing. I'm not going to micromanage you.
Yeah, there's I'm part of EO, and so a peer network.
What does it stand for?
Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global organization. There's 25,000 members, I believe. So ask people, right? Ask other entrepreneurs, hey, what do you do for this? What do you do for that? How do you solve this problem? I've got this problem. Like, any experiences you could share that are similar? Most of the time, 1 in 3 people will be able to help you solve that problem much better than you had an idea to come up with. You're probably overcomplicating it. And they're like, no, just do this. It's easy, right? That happens all the time. So ask friends, and reach out to other entrepreneurs. If you don't have that network, start to build it, right? If you need something in the future, which is probably a good network for entrepreneurs, start building it today. There's lots of really good business owner support groups out there in whatever city you're in. So go find those and really use them, right? And it'll be a two-way, right? You'll have problems you've solved and you'll help other people and vice versa. So I'd say that for me is the key one. And then finding people when it comes to like hire someone. So if it's not like a third party, if you're hiring somebody onto your staff, again, who knows how to solve that problem? Who knows how to hire well? Well, HR people generally. So, ask your business owner friend, hey, who do you use for like an HR consultant to get your hiring process dialed in so that you have successful hires most of the time? As a business owner, you don't have to create the wheel of vetting people and seeing if they match your values and making sure their skills are aligned and they're going to work hard. There's processes that have been built thousands of times, and there's some really good ones out there. So go find them, right? They're not that hard to find.
What do you recommend? What have you found to be the best sort of ways to go out there, identify, hire, recruit, train, manage the best people? Are there certain like Shawn, Freeman?
Yeah. So it's a bit like sales. You wanna always be hiring is kind of one of my caveats. Like, we're always looking for good people.
I have so many other things happening on my plate every day. I mean, like literally most of my days, I hate meetings. That's something we should talk about too. But like, I end up having personally a lot of meetings. Most of my company does not, thankfully, but I have a lot of meetings. And so like, even today, I'm back to back calls until the afternoon. Yet I have a personal thing I have to do in the afternoon. So then probably like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's the first time I'm going to look at Slack, ClickUp, which is how we track most of our work and have a lot of conversations there. Then probably tonight after I put my kids to bed, I'm going to finally get to email. So when do I have time to actually go recruit and always be hiring?
Yeah, so it's funny. So my looking back, I didn't hire an EA until like we were 20 people, which is typically how people do it. Now that I know better, my EA was my first hire on this new venture. I had an EA full time, not offshore, just local in my city, paid fairly well, and that was a game changer for me because I can pull a bunch of the stuff that I shouldn't be doing off my plate, and I can focus on the future. I can focus on building. As a business leader, you're responsible for everything, especially building out that hiring pipeline, right? So my team today, if they're $1 million a year, and I know we're going to be 2 in a year, I need to actually figure out who we need to have then, right? In 12 months, who do we need in what seats, and what are they going to be doing? And then I have like 9 months to kind of like put feelers out, put a job post up, maybe run into the right person, tell my team like, hey, if you see anybody with these skills that would be a good fit, we'll probably be hiring in the next 6 months for that role. So keep your eyes open. And you'd be amazed, like just saying that is like, oh yeah, a month later, like I've got somebody, they'd be perfect. And then we're like, cool, would they start in 8 weeks? Yeah, obviously they'll work with us, right? And that makes hiring easier. The problem that you're describing is reactive hiring, right? Where the leader hasn't thought a year away. They've thought 3 weeks away. And they're like, we need somebody in 3 weeks because we just closed that client. And even though that client is actually puts us on target for our growth, we didn't plan the rest of the journey. You know what I mean? Because I was too busy. I couldn't do that planning.
How do you make sure you're hiring the right people? So it's one thing, okay, I'm doing my kind of prep, I'm thinking further out, makes total sense. And you can do that for, once again, no price, no cost really, besides your time. How do I make sure I'm bringing on the right people? Like what is then, okay, great, I've identified I need this role. Are you the type of consultant and coach who says like, hey, like always hire people you want to learn from, like everybody needs to be an A player, even if it takes you 6 months. There's lots of things people say. What is your actual recommendation around who you should bring on when? And to be clear, then one other question, how do you decide when you need a full-time hire versus once again outsourcing it? To our whole point of delegation, can you outsource some of this? Do you need to bring on a full-time salesperson? Do you need to bring on a full-time marketer? Even a full-time engineering staff? Or do you just bring them on for specific projects? So kind of two questions. Like one, how do you hire? What sort of are the great hires? And then how do you decide, do I hire or do I outsource?
Yeah, hiring versus outsourcing, that's probably an easier one. For me, hiring is like what's your core delivery that you're providing your customer? And like, what do you need to make sure that's really tight and is customer facing? Hire those people, because then they'll really have buy-in. If they make a mistake, it's not on purpose, right? And you're really in control of that. So that's that. And then, outsource everything else, like finance stuff, marketing, like all those things that are, somewhat customer facing, but if it's not done perfectly, it's not going to impact a ton of revenue, right? So that's kind of my rule of thumb on those. And then the other thing too is, always simplify and automate before you do that, right? So make sure your business.
You define the simplify versus automate. So that's also one where automate is a scary word to me, actually, because I think people get too deeply involved. Like I can automate this whole thing before they even know it's a good process to automate. So like, how do you define automate versus simplify? Simplify, sure, but what does that mean?
Yeah, automate's the final step for me. It's look at your process, try to simplify it, right? Like, our company, we fixed computers. And so we would have the odd times a tech would go to a client's site and say, oh, we got to set up this monitor for you, right? And oh, darn, there's an adapter. We need an adapter. We got to go buy it, right? So like most times a company would go back to the office, send them a quote. Here's a quote for a $12 adapter. Please approve, order it, get it in. A week later, go install it and then bill for it, right? So like that's a fair process for most companies. We were like, why? That costs so much money for all the back and forth, for the 2 extra car trips and the approval and then the time for someone to actually invoice it. We just gave our team like all the adapters they could ever need and said, throw them in your trunk. And if somebody needs one, give it to them and order another one and never bill them for it and just say it's on us. And we actually made money by changing to that process. And the client gets the thing for free and we don't spend all the time on useless garbage, right? So simplify the process first. And now you end up with a better customer experience. And you're probably now you can scale that and not have to add an admin person to bill adapters for a monitor, right? Like it's just insane how many businesses have silly little processes like that because it doesn't seem right to just give them something for free. Well, it's like it's going to cost you a lot more internally to not do that, right? So that's one example of simplify. And then once you've simplified the process, if there's still work to do, then try to automate it, try to put it in your systems and make it streamlined. Like maybe now it's just an e-commerce checkout and boom, 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 client can go and order it on their own and then it just ships straight to them and off you go. Tell them, buy it on Amazon. Like every business has an Amazon account. Here, I'm going to send you a link, just buy it, plug it in here, off you go, right? Now you've eliminated the process from your business. So you've shifted the burden, you've delegated it, right? And you're not making you're not making millions of dollars on a $12 part, right? So I'd say, and then last but not least, like just if you have the process now and you still got to do some things and it's been simplified, now try to automate it, integrate your tools together, get them talking to each other. Lots of platforms like Zapier or Make.com, like you can click and you can even hire like Zapier or Make experts and they'll just do what you want to do and it'll cost you $500, right? And as soon as you automate that thing once, you never have to think about it again. It just happens now. And that compounding effect on all those little things, that's the thing people don't do and they get stuck on. They're like, well, this is like, it takes me like 20 seconds. And I'm like, yeah, your business is going to last for a decade probably, right? So you tell me, do the math, like throw it in an Excel, 20 seconds times however many times you do this every week times 10 years. That's a lot of time. And $500 to make that all go away seems pretty reasonable.
I once again, you're speaking my language. So many founders don't get that, but I totally agree. It's idiotic when people say I'm going to be penny wise and pound foolish with my time versus a little bit of money.
Yeah. And same with training people and delegating, right? I'm going to spend 3 hours delegating a fairly complicated process to my EA and to never have to do it again.
I want to talk about that too, but we're going to run out of time. And I want to be really, one thing that you're an expert on, right, is how to use technology in a business and essentially making technology a core part of your startup and your business. And what is your high level advice when it comes to what kind of businesses are you advising? What sort of technology are you recommending? How are they using it or how aren't they using technology? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it's a very similar problem. Like everybody goes and signs up for all these apps and doesn't know how they talk to each other or work together. They don't understand security implications or privacy implications with AI tools now. And then they're kind of lost with like, oh, I've got like 50 subscriptions. None of them talk to each other. I really need to like go back to the basics and really look at everything and have a strategy. And that's, most people are missing that step is like, how do you get that strategy to look at all your tools and why you're using them? I've built a technology foundation checklist that is sort of the bottom level of that strategy. And I've also built what I call like a technology hierarchy. And so you really need to build on a foundation and then you need to create that strategy with that foundation. So the foundational things of technology are, believe it or not, like hardware. Do you have a good computer? Like amazing how many people don't. You don't have a great laptop. Some people have desktops still. And I'm like, why? Like, unless you're a designer and you need the horsepower, like just get something mobile, right? Some people have both. They have a desktop at their office and they got a laptop at home. I'm like, that's crazy. Just have one device.
And why do you care? I mean, I think I can imagine why, but like, why do you think that's important to get a good computer? Most people like, my computer works. It pulls up a website. Why do I need something better?
Yeah. So number one, typically security. If you have a 5 or 6 year old computer, it's not secure anymore. It's running Windows 10 or Windows 7. And, there's just those things. And then the thing too with computers is over time, they slow down because you're upgrading the software on them and you don't realize it because you just get used to the speed of it. Right. And then you go get a new computer and you spend $3,000 on it to get a brand new MacBook Pro with M2 chip or M3 chip. And you're like, this thing's so fast. Oh my God. And then you realize like, and nobody kind of connects the dots like, wow, I've had that gap of a slow computer to now a fast computer for like a year and a half at least, or 2 years. It's like, how much more could I have like done and had free time just to sit and enjoy a drink on the patio if I had had a faster computer, right? And so the tools that we're using is just like, you just have a better drill to be quicker and do your job faster, right? And that compounds over that life of that device, right? Yeah. So that's why, like for my team, they get the best computer, and we get rid of it every 2-3 years, and we get a new one and we upgrade. And it's not because we've got all the money to spend; we just value performance. And so then, like the next step on that hierarchy is really security. So physical devices play a part of security, but then there's a ton more that plays a part of security. A lot of companies, they just go buy all these subscriptions. Their COO sets it up and creates users and buys computers from Apple or Microsoft and sets their new users up. And they think they have security. And then I ask them 3 or 4 questions and they're like, oh, there's a lot that I didn't know that I need. And the fact that, I'm on Microsoft or I'm on Google, I thought it was just secure. I put my credit card in and they said I have email now. Like, is it not just secure? No, it's the opposite. The basic configuration of most tools is the least secure because they want to enable adoption.
Unfortunately, there's a trade-off in many cases with security and ease of use.
Yeah, and it's getting better now. Like with MFA, it's getting smarter and it's just like pops up on your phone. You hit approve, you're good, right? And that's the thing. So security is really that next level, and a lot of owners and business leaders don't really know. They think they're secure. It's kind of like this blind ignorance. And then they just like 5 questions and they're like, whoa, I'm missing a lot of significant things. cool. And so then they can start to consider those things. So I created the technology foundation checklist that you can link to, so that people can go through with their team or with their IT company or person and say, do we have these things? And it's really, I kind of distilled it down into easily understandable language, but it's based on the CIS framework, which is the Center for Information Security framework, very well known and respected. And so, but that checklist is just like the step one of that framework. There's a lot more if you need compliance, if you're finance or if you're healthcare or something like that. So, so then you get security. So now you've got the 2 base levels and there's 6 more. And I can share that hierarchy with you, but the next ones are around getting a culture of innovation, right? Because, if you're a company and people are afraid that AI is going to take their job, you're not innovating, you're not automating, you're not getting rid of manual processes that take time, that ensure that they have a job tomorrow. So you really need to dial that in. And a lot of that goes back to the vision of the leader and saying, hey, we're growing here. And if you can save half of your week with automation, now you can do more important things, right? But if you don't tell that story as a leader, or if you can't because you don't have that vision, your people are just going to be scared.
So what is that? Sorry, explain that story again. Like, what is the story you want to tell about, like, how automation can help them and not be a...
Yeah, they need to understand, like, where's this company going? And if I automate half of my job or more, am I going to have other work to do as we go there? Right?
And what are the right stories that are good to tell there? Because this is also something that we deal with in my company, and we talk about this a lot. We have a whole plan about this. It's very public for the team. I think it frees people up to do their best work and use their superpower. But I do know there's an underlying fear that, oh my God, this is going to take my job. If that's true, it's going to take everyone's job before it takes yours, because we're all then in trouble. But
yeah, and they're just busy worrying if they don't have the clarity from the leader. So the best story to tell is like, hey, in 5 years, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to impact the industry and how we're going to be the next, X of our industry. And we're on the leading edge of that. And therefore, we're going to need a lot more work done. We're going to need to be doing a lot more. So if you can automate all these things you don't like doing anyway, then it'll free you up to be the one doing that work. If you can't be the one, and then the flip side of that, you can have the conversation. It's like, if you can't be the one leading that automation and getting rid of the easy stuff we all know is automatable, or just you can eliminate it with better tools. If you can't be the one to drive that, then you're probably not going to be on that journey with us either, right? So it's sort of both people have a responsibility, but there is a future if you don't resist a change. We all want companies that are full of people that take on change, right?
Well, how do you build that culture? Like, how do you build a culture that embraces that mindset and mentality?
I think it's just the clear, honest conversations from the top, right? And the fact that your employees need to be, they need to feel like the leader at the top of the company has an idea of what the future is bringing, right? And so those leaders need to be aware of what's coming for technology and what is possible in the future, and how to navigate that. If there's uncertainty with that leader of like, oh, is this leader going to be able to lead us into the AI revolution? Like, your team is probably looking for other jobs.
Help every leader listen to this. Explain the AI to them, right? Because this is one thing, even the best AI leaders today can't really explain what's going to happen in the next 3 months, let alone year. So how is anyone who's not in AI able to explain that to their team? It's like, yeah, don't worry, your job is going to be totally safe. When who knows, there might be AI doing everyone's job. In
the funny thing is, if you can train a person to do something, you'll be able to train AI to do it.
I mean, every job's at risk because everyone's been trained to do their job.
So not necessarily, because there's a lot of things you can't train AI, and creative thinking.
I don't really though. I mean, a lot of AI seems really good at mimicking mimicking creativity.
Yeah. And so obviously before AGI comes, which is coming quicker than everybody realizes, and there's predictions that'll be here before 2030, right? And so, but then at that time, it's going to be a fundamental societal shift, and we're all going to just be trying to find other purposes. And so that's really leaders are in this weird spot where they need to obviously be on the forefront of this so that they can, be at the front of it. And the other thing too is there is this weird AI bubble that I think will pop at some point and will come back, and people will be like, oh, I actually enjoy doing this. So even though I could give it to AI, I'm going to keep doing it. Right. Like we're going to have that sort of a rebound effect, and then, regulation will come in and people will realize like, oh, I can actually just pick what I love to do and then do that and say, I'm actually not going to hire an AI. And there might be a point where everybody's just gets a basic income and we all, live well. And
so what do I tell my team if I'm a business owner? Like, hey, like there's this massive new tech wave that is probably going to replace everyone's jobs. It's still sort of what you're saying a little bit. Trust me, we're going to be okay for the next 5 years. But like after that, who the heck knows? All bets are off. Everyone, including myself as CEO, might be out of a job. What do you tell people? It's not necessarily reassuring. It might be the truth. It's not necessarily reassuring.
I think it's just really to, hone in on what you enjoy doing. If you could get up every day and do something and not get paid for it, what would you do?
Do you find that a lot of the team members at the companies you work for, the companies you've run, feel that way? So like it's one thing, in many cases, there is the sort of employee versus like owner or founder dichotomy. And a lot of employees feel like I'm here to work, but I don't actually love it. Whereas founders like, I get up every day and I'm like, how do I solve this massive mission and vision problem that I have in front of me? Is there a way to merge those two where the team is also as bought in as you are as a founder?
It's hiring the people that love what you're going to have them do. Like aligning that, right? If it's customer service, hire the person that loves doing that, right? If it's marketing, hire the person that loves to do that. That's the thing too, is I think a lot of people, business owners will, they'll hire the person that's like number 2 or number 3, and they, they're kind of 7 out of 10 love it and they're decent at it, but they're cheaper than the number 1 person, right? And so you don't move as quick, the person doesn't enjoy it as much, and it's a lot shorter of an engagement probably in that company.
How do you hire those people who are just the number 1? How do you find those people who truly love what they do?
So 2 things. So reason that people hire the like second best, or they couldn't find the person that loves to do that thing, is because they are hiring reactively most of the time. Most businesses hire reactively. So being able to be as much ahead of that as you can will set you up for more success there. And then really dialing in your values, making sure they fit your values, because them doing what they love will only be enjoyable if they're in a place where their values match, right? Because, if they love that, but your values are totally opposite to theirs, they're going to have a horrible time and they're going to leave, even though they love doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? So you really have to have that alignment. And then the other thing too is realizing as a founder that if you're hiring like more intermediate or newer employees, they might not know yet. Right. So as a leader, it's your job to help them like play around with some things and experiment.
They don't know, are there qualities you're looking for? If they don't fully know, which is fine, cool, they obviously bought in, but like, are there still ways you can identify like this person is an A player?
Yeah, the number 1 thing in my opinion would be that they're easily adaptable. They can learn, they can figure it out, they can roll with the punches, and they're not just stuck in a certain way.
Can you identify that from like a resume?
Maybe not a resume, but an interview for sure. Yeah, you can ask lots of questions around that. You can ask other values-based questions too. Scenarioing like, hey, if this happened, how would you approach it? How would you handle it?
Got it. So Shawn, the question I like to ask everyone at the end of my podcast is, if there's a single piece of advice that you would give to every entrepreneur to achieve excellence, what would that be?
Yeah, I think every entrepreneur really needs to have that bigger vision. I think start with that. Figure out something that really hits home in, what your purpose is, and like that ikigai kind of mentality, and make it big. And then you have that future vision of something you think might be impossible, but might not be. And then work backwards, right? Because it forces you to be a better entrepreneur.
Yeah, love that. If people want to get in touch, learn more about you, the work you're doing, how can we find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, just look up Shawn Freeman. You'll find me there. theartofbusinesstech.com. You can find that tech resource on there as well. You'll find me easy.
Amazing. Shawn, thank you so much for the time. I sincerely appreciate it. I know our listeners will as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adam.